7 parts. Now, anyone of around 19, 18 would find it pretty daunting just writing one book. Why on earth did you think, right, 7?
Well, I'd actually written a book before when I was 15, and I'd submitted it to agents and it hadn't been accepted anywhere, and it was all quite crushing for me. But then when I was 19, I decided that I was going to try again. And it really came from when I did an internship with a literary agent, and he's based in Seven Dials in Covent Garden, and I had this really strong...
a lot of your book is set, isn't it?
Exactly. I had a really strong idea for a setting, and I got this idea of clairvoyance, because there's kind of shops in the area that sell tarot cards and crystal balls and so on, so it kind of all just snowballed from there.
So Paige is the lead character, who is 19 years old.
19, yes.
And it's set sort of kind of in the future in a different kind of a world, but in certain areas that are familiar, like London, Oxford as well.
Yeah.
What powers does she have? Just give us a sense of what it is she has.
She's a dream walker, so she can break into people's minds, and she does have the potential to possess people. So it's a very rare gift in the world she's inhabiting, and she's very wanted for it by kind of these sort of supernatural creatures that live in Oxford.
What attracted you to clairvoyancy? I mean, do you have a natural interest in that? Because looking at the locations in the book, that must be familiar to you as well, because you went to Oxford and a lot of it's based around Oxford as well.
I mean, the clairvoyance thing, I hadn't previously really been interested in clairvoyance. It was just when I went to Seven Dials and I was seeing these tarot cards and crystal balls, and I thought that might be actually a really interesting way of looking at fantasy, because you get kind of magic systems in fantasy, and if Harry Potter wizarding, for example. But I thought clairvoyance could be a really fascinating one to create a system out of.
Who have you compared yourself to, or who would you like to think that you should be compared to? Because when I read the book, to me it sparked flashes of the Hunger Games, her sense of being alone and fighting or rallying against a system, but you've been compared to J.K. Rowling as well.
I mean, I don't like to compare myself to other authors because, I'm still a young author and I have a lot to learn. But, I mean, one of my biggest inspirations is Margaret Atwood, and I read her novel The Handmaid's Tale, and that's kind of what introduced me to dystopian literature. I hadn't really been aware of it as a genre before that, because I hadn't read The Hunger Games until shortly after I started the Bone Season. And also George Orwell. I mean, I would never compare myself to him, but he's one of my idols.